You think of what God reminds the people of first before the terms of the covenant are given. You have been brought out from slavery. Think about you being a slave, and your new master comes to you and says, I've freed you. You're free. I brought you out of that. How would you treat that person? Brethren, they brought you out of slavery. The person before you didn't even think you were a person, not an image bearer. You're like the children in the womb, not even a person, right? That's how sin thought of you. And when you think that your sin brings you and calls you back to come to it, it's lying to you, brethren. It doesn't love you. You are not image of God. You are trash. And so you think when He tells them to hear, listen, I brought you out of slavery. Remember that. I did it. And I think the emphasis is there. I am the Lord, your God. I'm Yahweh. I brought you out. If you want to know why Paul can say, if anyone's going to boast, who they boast in, brethren? The Lord. Because God Himself actually has a right to stand next to you and say, listen, I did it. I actually did it. Right? You think all these basketball players talk much about themselves, think much about themselves, boast much about themselves? God can actually stand there like He is them and say, yeah, I did it. I rescued you, because He wants you to remember who He is. He actually does deserve to be boasted about. He does deserve to be recalled to mind. He does deserve remembrance and honor and glory. He does deserve your praise. And so before he reminds them of the covenant, He reminds them first of how He made it. I brought you out. I did it. And you remember that, because that'll humble you. That'll humble me real quick. When you remember you were but a slave, all of you, slaves to sin, no good to anybody but being out in the fields, drudging along. You were a slave for nothing good but to revel in your sin. And He says, I did it. And you ought to hear, O Israel, I did it. The Lord, now your God, your Master, He did it.